Well, good morning, folks. We're still seeking parabiblical wisdom. I'm the Christian whistleblower, Jeffrey Daugherty. This is the gospel truth, and we're seeking this morning some more parabiblical wisdom from H.P. Blavatsky. And we are going through some definitions that Madame Blavatsky, as she was called, gave us in the beginning of her work that we're studying. And we want to go ahead and go back and start looking once again at those definitions and picking up where we left off. Very interesting stuff for us to ponder, very interesting stuff for us to understand, very interesting stuff to help us understand more about the world around us and understand more about the spiritual terms and things that we need to get in touch with if we're going to go deeper in the realm of the spirit. So right now we just ended up talking about the astral and the ether last time. Now we move on to the akasa. And this is a word that's deep within the Hindu and Sanskrit realm. And literally the word means in Sanskrit sky. So the sky. But in the mystic sense, it's talking about the invisible sky. Or as the Brahmins term it, the soma sacrifice. I'm not even going to try to say that Indian word, the god akasa or the god sky. So the Sanskrit and the ancient Indian line of thought sees not just sky like we see sky, sees not just even heaven like we see heaven as just a place where God lives. That's kind of how we see in the West. But the folks from India see the sky itself as a divine place, which helps understand why Vedic astrology is so prolific and proficient at telling us about ourselves. And as we go right into it, the language of the Vedas shows that the Hindus of 50 centuries ago, that's a long time, and that they ascribe to many of the same properties as the Tibetan lamas, like Dalai Lama of the present day do. And if you look at the teachings of the Christ and look at them from an objective point of view, you will find many common elements from the Hindus. You will find many common elements even from the teachings of the Brahmins as well, of the Tibetan teachings. So the sky is considered in those schools of thought as the very source of life and the reservoir of all energy and the propeller of every change of matter. So it ties back in with the idea of ether that we're talking about, that it is a substantive thing rather than just a woo-woo mist, and that it is the propeller of every change. And in that, as we speak to the storm, we really are trying to activate and move the akasa. And we do that at 11 after every hour, and we continue to do that. It's in its latent state. It tallies exactly with our idea of the universal ether. So we're right. I'm thinking along the same lines as Blavatsky was. And in its active state, it becomes the all-directing and omnipotent God. That's very interesting. So in its latent state, it's ether. It's the spiritual realm in which we do our spiritual work. It's the actual, if we were fish, it'd be the water in which we move. If our spiritual workings are fish, then it is the ocean through which we work. And yet when it becomes personified, it becomes the divine, not just the realm of the divine as in Western thought, but the divine itself. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. And as such, in the Brahmanical mysteries, it is actually the realm of the performance of spirituality. So that's, again, what we're talking about. It's the realm where we do what we do. And it is the power that empowers us to do what we do. Very interesting. And moving from that to something that seems a lot more mundane, anthropology. And of course, I have 2 years of collegiate study in anthropology. So this is somewhat near and dear to my mind. Anthropology, simply put, is the science of man, the ology of the anthropos, or anthropos. So it is very definitely the science of mankind. And when I was studying it in college, I didn't even think about it being the science of mankind. So I thought of it as the science of culture, the science of language and of research of cultures. But it really is the science of man ourselves. And it includes physiology, which is that branch of natural science which discloses the mysteries of the organs and their functions to a minimal degree today in modern anthropology. Psychology, neglected science is the soul. And really, as you study the cultures of people and the ways of people and the thoughts of people and the manifestations and expressions of their culture, you do get a tremendous insight into their psychology. That's why I'm so big on the text. If you want to know what was really going on in the first century, if you want to know the psychology of the first century, you look at the expressions that it produced. And in our case, as we seek spiritual wisdom of the Christ, it's all about the text that was produced, both the New Testament and the Parabiblical text. Now, in modern science, psychology relates only to conditions of the nervous system and almost absolutely ignores the physical essence in nature. Physicians denounce the science of insanity and the lunatic chair in medical colleges by that designation. But in a great holistic sense, psychology is about more than just the mind. It's also about the soul. Very interesting. And anthropology, the study of the expressions of the culture of a people, really does give great insight into their psychology, both of mind and of soul. So it can really be said that the soul of a culture the expression of a soul of a culture is in the things that the physical things it produces. That's how you can tell where their soul was, which speaks very interestingly about our culture. And we come now to the Chaldeans, or the Kasdim. At first a tribe, then a caste of learned Kabbalists. So Blavatsky talks about the Chaldeans as being learned Kabbalists. She calls them savants. She calls them magicians of Babylonia. She calls them astrologers. She calls them diviners. So the Chaldeans, in Blavatsky's terms, are more than just a group of people from a certain place, but they were indeed savants, magicians, astrologers, diviners. And when you think about the Western spiritual mindset, it comes from the cradle of the Chaldeans, because a lot of our religious mindset comes to us through the Hebrew people and the Hebrew manifestation, which was really thoroughly Chaldean, Babylonian, with also Egyptian expressions. Hillel the Elder, who many see as a precursor of Jesus in philosophy and ethics, even of the Christ, was a Chaldean. And we talk about the Kabbalah. Its origin is Chaldean. We talk about the Tarot. Its origin, I'm convinced, was Chaldean and may go right back to the feet of Daniel, the prophet himself. And it's been written that the secret doctrine, the original secret doctrine, may well be in the metaphysics of the Chaldees. And Wayne Steiger, our good friend, holds that the true name of the illimitable, inexpressible one is lost forever in the archives of the Chaldeans. So really, we should do more study of the Chaldeans, more understanding of the Chaldeans, because in reality, they say life began in Sumer and spirituality began in Sumer. That's probably true, but we also hold a great debt in the West to that of the Chaldeans. Now, what are the dactyls? Well, literally, it's a finger. It's a name given to the priests that were of the worship of Sybil. And some archaeologists derive the name from finger because there were 10, the same in number as the fingers of the hand. But she doesn't believe that is Blavatsky being that one. So the dactyls, I don't know. That's something maybe we didn't need to know, but it is still nonetheless interesting. And then we come to daemons, a name given by the ancient people and especially the philosophers of the Alexandrian school to all kinds of spirits, whether good or bad. And if we remember our talk about the Gnostics of the Alexandrian school were of a pantheistic or of a pagan, meaning not a dualistic Christian type of mindset, but they were open to other and various input and discussion. So I would consider myself very much more Alexandrian than Syrian in regards to our type of thought and understanding. So there were all kinds of spirits, good or bad, human or otherwise. So daemons or demons, if we follow our heritage, at least we'll track my heritage, the more I learn through the Alexandrian school of Gnosticism. Jeff, are you saying you're an Alexandrian Gnostic? No, I'm not saying I'm an Alexandrian Gnostic, but I'm saying that much of the base of my philosophy and understanding of spirituality has many common elements to the Alexandrian Gnostic mindset. I've got just enough to make just about everybody say, no, we don't want any part of him, and just enough to upset just about everybody because I've got just a little bit of just about everything. And I think the Christ was very much that way. So, and I probably say this too much, but that's why one of the reasons why I have a soft spot for L. Ron Hubbard, even though he did a lot of crazy things. The man researched and studied and cobbled together a tremendous amount of information from a tremendous amount of sources. And the thing you have to understand about L. Ron Hubbard, very little of what he taught was original. And when we get if we get L. Ron Hubbard from the U.S. Navy days down to the original Dianetics days, there's a lot of good information there to glean and to use. And there's a lot to throw out as well. But once we move past the days of the Book of Dianetics and into hardcore modern Scientology is where we have to say goodbye, at least in my opinion, to Mr. Hubbard. And I think a lot of that becomes more along the Miscavige realm of Scientology and not true the teachings of Mr. Hubbard. So no, I'm not a Scientologist. No, I'm never going to be one. But my hat goes off to a man like Hubbard who plumbed the depths of many a system and pulled out some part good or bad. So some may call him demon, some may call him daemon. But anyways, there's a lot of interesting things to ponder within some of his writings. So, and as we get to that, some demons can be good, some can be bad. So there's probably in reality good demons, bad demons. In the West, we tend to use that word as exclusively of the bad. And there can be some that are human and there can be some that are not human. So what I would interpret Blavatsky as saying here is that some of these disembodied human spirits that we might want to call ghosts might more correctly be listed under the daemon or demon category. And some of these disembodied human spirits, probably most of them bad in the sense of you don't want to take advice from them, but some could be potentially, possibly helpful as long as you're not stupid enough to follow the Doreen lack of virtue school of thought and just say, oh, are you of the light? And if they say yes, because they can't lie because Doreen Virtue said so. You know, it's like stupid is as stupid does. And Blavatsky talks about it being often synonymous with gods or angels. But some philosophers have, with good reason, made a distinction between the many classes. So this is where we begin to think about things that are deep and to ponder depths that are very weighty. When we begin to think about daemons or demons, and we begin to think about whether some of them, whether we have disembodied human spirits, some malevolent, some at least quasi-benevolent potentially at times, which are probably few and far between in my humble opinion. And we begin to look at them as a subdivision or a different class of the gods, which we would look at as maybe the Elohim, or the manifestations of the many and several gods of the Alexandrian school of thought, which included just about all of the deities, and again looked for the good, looked for sources and pieces of information that could be pulled from every system. So the Alexandrian thought was, let's study the anthropology of the many and several religions and beliefs of the cultures of the earth, and let's do it not with a look down our nose idea of all these silly fools didn't understand the real God like our God, but to look at every culture with the idea of what is here that we can learn, what is here that we can use, what is here that we can apply, what is here that might be able to be adopted into our belief system, what is here that is practically useful as a spiritual technology in the furtherance of our own spiritual development, whether it be called in our particular ethnocentric idea of what is right and wrong, whether it be called good within our own ethnocentric idea, or whether it be called bad within our own ethnocentric idea, whether it be of a human type of inspiration or embodiment or otherwise, and maybe even inexplicable. Now, that doesn't mean you give your power to them. That doesn't mean you worship them. That doesn't mean you invite them into your spirit or your body. It just means that a true person of Alexandrian understanding, a true person of Alexandrian Gnostic philosophy, a true person of wide open, always learning, always seeking understanding Alexandrian mindset would be looking at everything not with the power of Christ compels you, but what do you have here that I could put to use in my search for spiritual maturity and ascension? And we make distinctions, we make judgments, we make evaluations, and sometimes we make decisions of this is not right, and maybe we even warn about it, but other times we take a little here, a little there. I remember one of my old friends when I was back in my preacher days said, I milk a lot of cows, but I make my own butter. And I kind of like that. And just for the moment, let's take a look and see what is happening within the chat room. If I can find the chat room. Sometimes I get lost in our dealio here and see what's going on. I'm a little bit behind, but we'll do it here. It's early. Jeff's, if he's live, I got to get some sleep. Yeah, I know how it goes. Oh, look, I try to do, I go to my YouTube and I look at the people that have been blocked, and I sometimes want to give them a chance to come back, and then they jump up and say and show me why I blocked them in the first place and why I try to be nice and reach out and allow. Makes me wonder sometimes why I do it. And you know who I'm talking to, and you are, if you want to stay, play nice, don't be rude. Pendulums. Somebody said I need a pendulum. I think I'm gonna start making pendulums. Know them by their fruits. Okay. You know what, Colin? It took you about 30 seconds to be an idiot again and get blocked again. So there you go. Ah, boy, I tell you. So there you go. There you go. Interesting stuff. Yeah, Blavatsky is an interesting person. Very, very interesting person. All right. So at least we found out that we needed to get rid of that chucklehead. And now we can go back and do some more study. Now we can go back and look at some more interesting stuff together as we look at a few more things here on this edition of Seeking Parabiblical Wisdom. This one with H.P. Blavatsky. The demiurge, our friendly neighborhood rat bastard. The Lord. The Jehovah. Marduk. The supernal power which built the universe. That's what he would like for us to believe. And he did have part in it. And of course, oh, this is interesting here now. I don't know if this is true, but if it is, wow. I don't know how much insight Blavatsky really had into things Freemasonic. But she is here offering that the demiurge, who of course is the Lord, Yahweh, Jehovah, rat bastard, so called because he was created without his father and has been acting like a bastard from the beginning. Do Freemasons really look at the Lord as their supreme architect? I would hope not. And if they do, then wow. Freemasonry is not for me. Anything that would look at the rat bastard as the supreme architect, whatever he's building, I don't want to have anything to do with it. Now, this is interesting, a word that you don't hear very often, and it's interesting to learn about it. A dervish. We've heard about whirling dervishes. We've heard it talked about. We've heard it spoken about. But do we really understand what a dervish is? A dervish is the whirling charmer. Mahometan devotees present little sympathy with the Hindus, but they will never reach beyond the second class of occult manifestations. Dervishes are strong mesmerizers, but will not submit to the abominable and incredible self-punishment which the Fakar invents for himself with an ever-increasing avidity. Wow. So a whirling dervish would be, I guess it's a person that actually does whirl until they get themselves into a state of religious ecstasy or disorientation physically, and then work. Yeah, those Turk dudes, they get all hippie. Exactly. I couldn't have said any better myself. So that's one of the things that, yeah, I think we'll let them, I think I will let the dervishes keep their dervishiness, and I will just move right beyond and not even talk about it. Wow. And how about the Druids? A sacerdotal caste which flourished in Britain and Gaul. That's all she has to say about the Druids, huh? Wow, that's kind of short shrift for our Druid friends. The elemental spirits. Now, this is very powerful here. Creatures involved in the four kingdoms of air, earth, fire, and water, called by the Kabbalists gnomes, sylphs, salamanders, undines. They may be termed the forces of nature and will either operate effects as the servile agents of general law, or may be employed by the disembodied spirits, whether pure or impure, and by the living adepts of magic and sorcery to produce desired phenomenal results. Such beings never become men. So we're talking about the elemental spirits. We would talk about the spirits of air, the spirits of earth, the spirits of fire, the spirits of water. Of course, that would be gnomes, sylphs, salamanders, and undines, respectively. I think of the leprechauns, I think of the fairies, the fae, and I think of, Tamu talking about her orbs, the forces of nature. And to our great loss, we no longer consider the divine spiritual aspects of the natural, and sometimes to our own injury, because I believe that these beings can and do sometimes inject themselves or produce influence that will touch the life of men and women. And they can be agents. I wouldn't look at them, as Blavatsky does, as servile agents, but perhaps even partners or familiars or allies is a better word, allies that can be employed by us through a interaction and a partnership to bring about results. And she says they never become men. Interesting. She's talking in a spiritualist term about spirits that are disembodied, and these spirits, these elemental spirits, never desire or manifest as human because they probably don't want to take the step down. And as I was just speaking, Blavatsky talks about, under this general designation, fairies and fays, the spirits of the elementals in myth, fable, tradition, and poetry. Their names are many. She would put the jinn here under elemental spirits. And I guess the jinn, being plasma beings, could fall under elementals. The fauns, the elves, the dwarfs, the trolls, brownies, goblins, pixies, moss people, white ladies, and many, many more. And as certainly is the case, they've been seen, feared, blessed, banned, and invoked in every quarter of the globe in every age. Shall we concede that all that have ever met them were hallucinating? Yeah, that's interesting, because a lot of us will say, oh, people that believe in the fairies, and they must be crazy. So all these people that have all from all time that have actually seen these things, interacting with these things, they're all cray-cray. I don't know if I'll go there. I really don't. Elementals and the principal agents of disembodied. The elementals are the principal agents of disembodied, but never visible at spirits and seances, and the producers of all the phenomena except the subjective. So Blavatsky knew a thing or two about seances. And she's saying that the elementals allow the manifestation of disembodied spirits at seances and actually facilitate the production of the phenomenon seen at seances, but never become visible themselves. I might have to take exception with Madame Blavatsky's seeming sweeping statement that the elementals never become visible. Because I know many people that have asserted that they have seen elementals with their very eyes. So I don't know if I can go down that path with Madame Blavatsky to say that they are never, ever seen. But nevertheless, interesting stuff from Madame Blavatsky. Interesting stuff from Madame Blavatsky. So I want to see if I can get back to where I want to get so I can actually see. I never pulled it up here, I guess, the chat room before me instead of looking off to my left. So let's take a look in the chat room. Let's answer some few questions and let's wrap this up. And this will probably be my last transmission of the day, I would certainly imagine. Okay. So here we are. So disrespectful sounding. Yeah, I don't have, that was off the dervishes, not my thing. I'm about to have that chronic crystal here, half price. Uh-oh. Are we talking about illegal substance references in our chat room? I hope so. It's all about tuning in on the proper frequency. I agree. In an initiation to Hermenet 453. Initiation to Hermetics. I've got it. We should start going through that. Rex was speaking elementals recently, was he? I'm going to remove that comment. We try to keep it a little cleaner than that. Nanu, Rex Bear, Shadow Peeps. And we don't want to advocate the use of illegal substances in the chat room. I will catch an hour or two of sleep and get back on the hoss, absolutely. In fact, just about exactly that. So very, very interesting stuff. Blavatsky. We also look into the parabiblical wisdom of Manly P. Hall. And we're going to look at, I'm going to go into the initiation into Hermetics. I don't think that's actually the name of the book, but I've got it. And Nick, we're going to take a look at that very, very well. Thanks for bringing that up. Sometimes I look at what's going on in here. I'm like, what is going on in here? But at any rate, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, your friendly neighborhood Christian whistleblower. This has been a look at the gospel truth, seeking parabiblical wisdom, and today seeking it specifically from the place of Madam Blavatsky. And I think I'll just leave now. It's getting a little loosey-goosey for me, and I'm a little bit tired. I don't want to get punchy. So I salute you that are here seeking truth, and we will be back tomorrow. Yeah, that's possibly, that's a good point, 55 Porter. There's a significant chance that half the chatters may be experiencing various levels of intoxication at this time of day. But let's try to keep it between the lines if we can. Aye, aye, aye. We'll see you again real soon. Probably next time you see me, I won't be wearing a shirt because there'll be an update from the beach. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower, and we'll see y'all again real soon.